So anyway, fights this weekend. Tomorrow there's a Bellator event and a Cage Warriors event. Cage Warriors actually have 3 events on this weekend, which is good. This is quite interesting because Bellator is rocked up into London and they're advertising on the tube, basically just this one fight. And they've reached that stage of, they're trying to be the UFC, but 10 years ago is what they were always trying to do. And they've reached the phase of UFC where you put on a London card, you have one fight with a British name in as the headliner, and then you phone it the fuck in for the rest of the fights. And that's what this Bellator card is looking like at the moment. I'm pretty... I don't follow British MMA super closely. I know some people in the scene, but I'm not, watching every event. But I'm looking down this list of names, and I'm not, blown away. They got Jack Grant, who's good, from Cage Warriors versus Nathan Jones. So basically your main event is the thing that matters. They got Douglas Lima versus Michael Page. And honestly, I'm probably going to lean towards Michael Page, given how Lima's looked lately. Douglas Lima is incredibly frustrating because he is basically becoming Tyron Woodley. He could have won both fights against Rory McDonald if he'd done enough. And the second fight with Rory McDonald was basically completely done as a high-level fighter. He was gun-shy. Jesus was stopping him from throwing punches. And Douglas Lima had to be pulled on top of him by Rory McDonald. Rory McDonald was like, come on, please, take the win. And then he fought Giga Mousasi and just backed up the entire fight, doing nothing. And then he fought Amosov and he did a similar thing. Meanwhile, Michael Page, one of the most interesting careers in MMA. I hope it doesn't become the standard, because MVP has fought an awful lot of bus drivers and bin men, but except the odd fight, like Paul Daly. Hang on. So Fernando Gonzalez was a 25-13 bum when Michael Page fought him. Teep to the Junk was convinced that Fernando Gonzalez would beat Donald Cerrone at the time, which, when was that? Donald Cerrone was probably still having good fights at that point. But he gets the split decision win over Fernando Gonzalez. He goes to box for a little bit. He beats Dave Rickles, who's coming up from lightweight. He beats Paul Daly by not really doing anything, but Daly's failing on takedowns. He fights Douglas Lima, gets low kicked into... Well, actually, no, we'll talk about the fight itself in a second. But then, the moment that he loses a fight, and he loses that undefeated record, he fights Richard Keeley, who was a 3-1, I believe, maths teacher. And this is the great one. This is how you know someone just is a full-on shit-eating wild man for Bellator, because they will try and justify it by being like, well, Keeley was talking mad smack online. And you're like, well, if that's a qualification, why am I not fighting John Vellante? Why am I not in a main event? Absolutely absurd. They bring in this guy with 4 fights to fight a genuine world-class welterweight. One of the probably the 3-4 best welterweights that Bellator's got, and that's probably their strongest division. Then he fights Gianni... Well, no, he's booked to fight Derek Anderson, another lightweight coming up to welterweight. He fights Gianni Melillo in London, who is not really anyone you should know. He fights Shinso Anzai, a UFC dropout who he handily beats. Then he fights Ross Houston. And the really interesting thing is that he fights Ross Houston, who is good and is he'd just been the Cage Warriors champion. He'd just come off a great fight with Nicholas Dalby. He's a good fighter, but people were already convinced he was a bum because MVP was fighting him, and they know that MVP fights bums. And then he fights Derek Anderson and breaks his nose. But people now expect everyone that MVP fights to be a bum because they've done so much can crushing for him and record padding. But their first fight, MVP and Douglas Lima, was actually really promising. I thought MVP looked really good. He was getting in on Lima and getting away untouched. He did a nice... he did a couple of nice bursts in. He managed to walk Lima onto some stuff. So I think Lima avoided the damage on the punches, but he managed to walk him onto them, or was trying to walk him onto them. And his issue was that he went for a open stance. He shoots a left straight as he steps in, checking the lead hand, and then he went to try and hit an outside reap or just an outside trip. And he leaned in, but he didn't take him over. He just bumped into him and fell back onto his back. And Lima got on top of him and tried to hit him. And the first round was Michael Venom Page on the bottom of closed guard with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and supposed world-class ground and pounder on top of him, and he held double wrist control, and Lima couldn't do anything. He couldn't even turn over elbows on him, which is the thing when guys have got double wrist control. So he's impressively strong on the ground. But the second round, he goes to burst in. Lima times a good low kick, takes his leg out, and MVP tries to pop up like you do if you don't think you've really been knocked over. You go like, well, get up as quick as possible. Whereas if you'd been properly taken down, you might think about it a second before, you try and time your stand-up. But he hops up. Lima swings the longest Marge Simpson crumping uppercut I've ever seen. He says, guess who's going to jail tonight? And he turns his chin around like on the end of his reach. I mean, people got really mad at me for saying like that was quite a fortunate connection, but it landed about the last place it could on his reach, and it landed just on the point of the chin as he was coming up with his head sideways. It was very strange because Lima didn't throw it to catch his chin and turn it sideways as his head was leaning over sideways on the end of his reach. He threw it just like blind as an uppercut. A punch is a punch. It still hits and knocks him out, but it was pretty crazy. So I'm quite interested in the rematch because I think MVP should be able to beat him, to be honest. Just got to keep moving around the ring. The downside is that, well, actually, I don't know, because I have seen MVP fight aggressively against decent fighters. He backed Paul Daly up almost immediately with feints. So if he can do that against Lima, just got to worry about that low kick. It's quite interesting because it's the thing that's going to take out MVP anyway, because of his his bladed side-on stance and his tendency to burst in. But it's also Lima's best weapon. Like he doesn't do enough of anything else. So yeah, you just got to deal with that. I'd say honestly, you're probably better off staying southpaw. Yeah, stay southpaw because he got caught. He get caught coming in orthodox. Yes, because it would have been right kick to his left leg. So yeah, keep the right foot in front and just shoot him up like that is what I'd say. Move him to the fence. Obviously, you can try and time the flying knee when he ducks in, as MVP often tries to do. And otherwise, I'm saying put him to the fence because I know that Lima will put his back on the fence and lose rounds. It's not that he hates it, it's that he's far too comfortable doing it. And his brother's the same in the UFC, Diego Lima. If you watch that fight with Bilal Muhammad, he just stands on the fence and I don't think Bilal Muhammad even had that much success taking him down. It's just that Bilal Muhammad could throw tons of punches and then duck in on his hips to avoid a return because he was always on the fence. But if you wanted to draw him out and fight him in the open, I suppose you could do that. I suppose the kick is a little bit more of a worry when you're not backing the dude up and there isn't a wall at his back. But then that's how Lima throws his kick anyway. He stands with his back to the fence and tries to kick. So yeah, worry about the kick, maybe about the left hook, which is good when Lima throws it, but he's not been throwing it much lately. Do the MVP thing, land some lancing left straights, fuck around with some flying knees, throw the odd high kick. I think people are going to be super salty if he wins, but he's world class. He's a world class talent, and that's been my beef for the entire time. I don't want to watch world class talents assault bus drivers and bin men. I want to watch world class talents fight world class talents. And I also really begrudge the people who laugh and clap when he's beating people who aren't even in the same league, and then try and advertise it as an amazing win. The best part was people who were justifying the Richard Keeley match, and then afterwards was that's what you get! That's what you get, Richard Keeley! And you're you were the only person who thought this was a good matchup. And then the co-main event is Leah McCourt versus Jessica Borger, and I don't know shit about that. I've heard the name Leah McCourt, but I'm not going to sit down and watch B-League women's featherweight fights, to be honest. Fuck. Very little else on this. I mean, some of these lads might be good. I'm not going to hate you because you're fighting in Bellator, but they certainly aren't bringing out the big Bellator names for this card, is what I'm saying. Which is basically what the UFC used to do with London cards. They'd be like, yeah, fuck it, here's Bisping versus... Well, actually, even Bisping got too good for London cards. But they'd give you one fight and then a load of just sort of filler. So yeah, lots to be going on with. It's one of those weekends with a quantity of fights rather than any that you're really excited for. So we've got a UFC, a Bellator, we've got 3 Cage Warriors, and there's normally good stuff on. There's normally a few good finishes on there and people to look out for. Yeah, we're all going to be mad when MVP beats Douglas Lima. And inevitably fights... He's going to fight Mousasi next, of course, because he's a welterweight. I'm your boy Jack Slack. You know where to find all my stuff. Go read the Jose Aldo Advanced Striking 2.0, and I will catch you on Monday. Cheers.